"Oh, she died? Pray pardon me, I didn't hear that. That indeed makes it very, very sad. Poor Mr. Meltham. She died? Ah, dear me, lamentable, lamentable." I still thought his pity was not quite genuine, and I still suspected an unaccountable sneer under all this, until he said, as we were parted, like the other knots of talkers, by the announcement of dinner, "Mr. Sampson, you are surprised to see me so moved on behalf of a man whom I have never met. I am not so disinterested as you may suppose. I have suffered, and recently too, from death myself. I have lost one of two charming nieces, who were my constant companions. She died young, barely 23, and even her remaining sister is far from strong. The world is a grave." He said this with deep feeling, and I felt reproach for the coldness of my manner. Coldness and distrust had been engendered in me, I knew, by my bad experiences. They were not natural to me, and I often thought how much I had lost in life, losing trustfulness, and how little I had gained, gaining hard caution. This state of mind being habitual to me, I troubled myself more about this conversation than I might have troubled myself about a greater matter. I listened to his talk at dinner and observed how readily other men responded to it, and with what a graceful instinct he adapted his subjects to the knowledge and habits of those he talked with. As, in talking with me, he had easily started the subject I might be supposed to understand best and to be the most interested in. So, in talking with others, he guided himself by the same rule. The company was of a varied character, but he was not at fault, that I could discover, with any member of it. He knew just as much of each man's pursuit as made him agreeable to that man in reference to it, and just as little as made it natural in him to seek modestly for information when the theme was broached. As he talked and talked, but really not too much, for the rest of us seemed to force it upon him, I became quite angry with myself. I took his face to pieces in my mind like a watch and examined it in detail. I could not say much against any of his features separately. I could say even less against them when they were put together. Then it is not monstrous, I asked myself, that because a man happens to part his hair straight up the middle of his head, I should permit myself to suspect and even detest him? I may stop to remark that this was no proof of my sense. An observer of men who finds himself steadily repelled by some apparently trifling thing in a stranger is right to give it a great weight. It may be the clue to the whole mystery. A hair or two will show where a line is hidden. A very little key will open a very heavy door. I took my part in the conversation with him after a time, and we got on remarkably well. In the drawing room, I asked the host how long he had known Mr. Slington. He answered, not many months. He had met him at the house of a celebrated painter then present, who had known him well when he was traveling with his nieces in Italy for their health. His plans in life being broken by the death of one of them, he was reading with the intention of going back to college as a matter of form, taking his degree and going into orders. I could not but argue with myself that here was the true explanation of his interest in poor Meltham, and that I had been almost brutal in my distrust on that simple head. On the very next day but one, I was sitting behind my glass partition as before, when he came into the outer office as before. The moment I saw him again, without hearing him, I hated him worse than ever. It was only for a moment that I had this opportunity, for he waved his tight-fitting black glove the instant I looked at him, and came straight in. "Mr. Sampson, good day. I presume, you see, upon your kind permission to intrude upon you, I don't keep my word in being justified by business, for my business here, if I may so abuse the word, of the slightest nature. I asked, was it anything I could assist him in? I thank you, no. I merely called to inquire outside whether my dilatory friend had been so false to himself, or as to be practical and sensible. But of course, he has done nothing. I gave him your papers with my own hand, and he was hot upon the intention. But of course, he has done nothing. Apart from the general human inclination to do anything that ought to be done, I dare say there is a speciality about assuring one's life. You find it like will-making. People are so superstitious and take it for granted that they will die soon afterwards. Up here, if you please, straight up here, Mr. Sampson, neither to the right nor to the left. I almost fancied I could hear him breathe the words as he sat smiling at me, with that intolerable parting exactly opposite the bridge of my nose. There is such a feeling sometimes, no doubt, I replied, but I don't think it obtains to any great extent. Well, said he, with a shrug and a smile, I wish some good angle would influence my friend in the right direction. I rashly promised his mother and sister in Norfolk to see it done, and he promised them that he would do it. But I suppose he never will. He spoke for a moment or two on indifferent topics and went away. I had scarcely unlocked the drawers of my writing table next morning when he reappeared. I noticed that he came straight to the door in the glass partition and didn't pause a single moment outside. Can you spare me 2 minutes, my dear Mr. Sampson? By all means. Much obliged, laying his hat and umbrella on the table. I came early not to interrupt you. The fact is, I am taken by surprise in reference to this proposal my friend has made. Has he made one? Said I. Yes, he answered, deliberately looking at me, and then a bright idea seemed to strike him. Or he only tells me he has. Perhaps that may be a new way of evading the matter. By Jupiter, I never thought of that. Mr. Adams was opening the morning's letters in the outer office. What is the name, Mr. Slington? I asked. Beckwith. I looked out at the door and requested Mr. Adams, if there were a proposal in that name, to bring it in. He had already laid it out of his hand on the counter. It was easily selected from the rest, and he gave it to me. Alfred Beckwith. Proposal to effect a policy with us for £2,000, dated yesterday. From the Middle Temple, I see, Mr. Slington. Yes, he lives on the same staircase with me. His door is opposite. I never thought he would make me his reference, though. It seems natural enough that he should. Quite so, Mr. Sampson, but I never thought of it. Let me see. He took the printed paper from his pocket. How am I to answer all these questions? According to the truth, of course, said I. Oh, of course, he answered, looking up from the paper with a smile. I meant there were so many. But you do right to be particular. It stands to reason that you must be particular. Will you allow me to use your pen and ink? Certainly. And your desk? Certainly. He had been hovering about between his hat and his umbrella for a place to write on. He now sat down in my chair at my blotting paper and inkstand, with the long walk up his head in accurate perspective before me, as I stood with my back to the fire. Before answering each question, he ran over it aloud and discussed it. How long had he known Mr. Alfred Beckwith? That he had to calculate by years upon his fingers. What were his habits? No difficulty about them. Temperate in the last degree, and took a little too much exercise of anything. All the answers were satisfactory. When he had written them all, he looked them over and finally signed them in a very pretty hand. He supposed he had now done with the business. I told him he was not likely to be troubled any further. Should he leave the papers there? If he pleased. Much obliged. Good morning.